Kabir, how are you? I am Dr. Joshi, Director for PIM Gwalior. Welcome to the conference, sir.
Good morning to you as well. Dr. Joshi, how do you do? Are you fine?
I'm fine, sir, and I hope the same for you, your family.
Well, I'm not a stranger for PIM. I joined at least 2 seminars in the past, physically, of course. At that time, Dr. Vakur was the director of PIM.
Sir.
I came to know that you have assumed the responsibility of the director very recently. So I wish you best of luck.
Thank you so much, sir.
We are all fine. And what is the situation in Gwalior?
Sir, it's quite under control. We were cruising through a bad phase, but it's more or like over, and we see light and hope ahead.
Well, so like many South Asian countries, Bangladesh is also struggling hard to contain the disease. But
we extend our wishes to the country, sir.
Right. Dr. Tarika Singh, how do you do?
Sir, I'm very good. Thank you so much. How you're doing?
So I'm fine. I'm doing my office every day.
Okay. Okay, you are going your office every day, sir?
Yes.
That's great.
But sometimes when there is a lockdown, then we have no other option but attending office from home.
So it's not like complete lockdown there.
Yes, it is going to be opened on 24th of this month.
Okay. Great. We do expect, sir, from 1st of June here as well. Let's see how the.
Good morning, Tansale Sab. How are you?
How are you, Mr. Joshi?
I'm fine, sir. It has been long meeting you. And it is our pleasure and honor that you have accepted our humble request.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I remember having come to your Indore Institute.
Yes,
and
sir.
Similar conference, I think I had addressed.
Yes, sir. During your tenure as the chairman of the Central Bank of India, you had visited our Indore premises.
The moment I saw Ajay Vyas in the panel.
So, sir, Mr. Vyas would also be joining us. And we have his in-principle confirmation.
Oh, great. Very good.
We hope, sir, you and your family's health is all under control.
Absolutely. Of course, I have undergone the rigmarole, but God has been kind. It was asymptomatic. So I'm perfectly all right. And
great, sir. Great to have you, sir.
I started my banking career from Gwalior.
I may say, sir, it is a small circle.
Yeah, my parent bank is Union Bank of India. So my first branch was Sarafa Bazaar. So where is our institute located?
We are on the airport road in the Dayal Nagar. That's the new development. And we are not very far off from your erstwhile branch location. Not very far off.
No.
It's certainly in the middle of the city, but we are towards the airport, sir.
Right. So what is going to be the discipline when the program is on? We'll put our video off, or
Sir, you may, because we will start at 10. We'll start at 10. We're just waiting for the guests to join in, sir.
Okay. So I will put my video off. I think my audio and video is.
Yes, sir. You are quite audible, and there's no issue with your video quality also.
Thank you so much. But what happens? The bandwidth is always an issue, Dr. Joshi. So you're from Indore only, no, Mr. Joshi?
Yes, sir. I'm basically from Indore, sir.
Right. Sure. I will open the video when Ajay joins. Huh? Okay.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Sharma ji.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Nixon. How are you?
I am fine, thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
It is of a pleasure that you have joined us, sir, from your busy schedule.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm also very happy that I'm able to participate in this prestigious management schools events. It's a good opportunity for learning for me also.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir,
Sir,
you're
we
so
have with
humble.
us our who have joined us, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Devish Jain. And we have our midst currently Mr. Mohan Taksale. He's the former chairman of the Central Bank of India.
Okay.
And we have with us, sir, currently who has joined with us is Dr. Kabir. He's from Bangladesh.
Okay.
And we're just waiting for Mr. Ajay Vyas, the current executive director for the UCO Bank. And
Okay.
I think we should be able to start absolutely on time at 10, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. No issue at all. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tansale Saab, David ji has also joined. So,
नमस्कार सर।
तो कैसे हैं?
बस ठीक है सर, आप कैसे हैं?
First class. The
Long
moment
time to see
I
you,
got a call from Pooja, I said Prestige Institute. I knew only Indore because I have addressed one of the seminar at Indore
Right sir, right sir, right sir.
while I was in Central Bank of India.
Yeah.
So I was happy to see that you are in Gwalior also now.
Yeah.
Good.
Gwalior is also one of our premier institutions. It's long standing now in Gwalior.
Yes, sir.
And we are, I think, the only NAC a great accredited institution with full autonomy from UGC.
Very good, sir.
Also NB accredited, and I think they are ranked very high in India management institutions.
Great.
Indore certainly now this time Indore has ranked among top 15 in the country.
Good, sir. Good, sir. Good to be associated.
We're coming up with our new university at Indore.
Oh, really? Good.
Yeah, it's almost first phase is getting completed now.
Good. Good.
I think we should start.
Indore is a real great educational hub, no doubt. Yeah. And I take a pride that I had my school education in Vaishnav School in
Yes,
60.
I'm aware of. Your family connections also, I'm aware.
Yeah. Of course, now people have moved out of Indore, but my elder brother is there.
Yeah. That's
my
right.
in-laws who were there, they are no more now. So, but I have a deep connection because I did my early schooling 61 to 66 in Vaishnav School, Rajmolla. And my wife studied all through at Indore.
My schooling, from 9th, 10th, 11th was also in Vaishnav school.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
What a great school.
Yeah. That time it was one of the best schools. And I completed my schooling in 73. Yeah.
Oh, I graduated.
That's right.
So we have Vice Chancellor, sir, on the line, I understand.
Yes, sir.
So good morning, Dr. Devish. How do you do, sir?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Last time we met in 2019 in December.
Yeah.
I joined your seminar last time in 2019 with Professor Samsul Waris of my university.
Right, sir.
And it was a very nice experience for us. We are staying in Hotel Narayanam, if I am not mistaken. And you provided us great hospitality in that occasion.
Thank you, sir. Sir, just to take it further from where Dr. Jain was telling, we are now 23 years old in Gwalior, and we are not only NAC accredited, we are one of the few institutions in the state who's both NAC and NBA accredited.
Oh, wonderful! Great.
And our current ranking actually in Central Asia is 16th in terms of the ROI that a student receives from us. So Universal Paris has ranked us very recently, and we are amongst the top 20 in Central Asia in terms of what the student spends during his course of education in the institution and what eventually he becomes. So we have been trying to go a bit around.
It's a matter of pride, Dr. Joshi, and compliments, because I was associated with SP Jain when they started their global campus. I was the first banker to be with the SP Jain Institute when they started Singapore. And now I am with two management institutes in Mumbai. One is Palitilak Vidyal Institute of Management, and second is the India Education Society, where from one of my colleague, Svetlana, Dr. Svetlana, she's also joining in the afternoon. In morning session, sir, I think she's joining.
Yes, sir.
So it's a pleasure to be associated with the educational institutions, sir.
Sir, I'll just take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Anil Bajpai, who is our admist. He is our Chief Operating Officer for the Prestige Education Foundation and the upcoming Prestige University. I somehow missed his presence. He would have joined in between. So,
Namaskar, everybody.
Namaskar, Bajpai.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's a very pleasant occasion to see such, exalted personalities on one screen, and that too amidst the improving conditions of COVID in India. It is the beginning of a very, very positive outcome to follow in the next few days. We are all very, very hopeful, and we begin this finance seminar with a strong hope that economically, spiritually, physically, and in every other manner, now on, we will only look one direction, and that is upwards. Things have started to look, things have started to look up on some fields, but I'm sure over the next couple of days we will hear from brilliant people like yourselves in terms of the kind of areas that are looking up, not just in the direct financial sector, but the indirect financial sectors. Areas in labor, areas in agriculture, areas in manufacturing, service industry, everything. Once the lockdown is lifted across the country, there will be an upsurge of activity, I am sure. I'm a very optimistic person by nature, so I feel that we will go.
Your optimism is very well founded, Dr. Bajpai, and that is what is really required in the environment. I mean, we in India, we really need an environment of appreciation and positivity. Unfortunately, these two things are getting killed, and I think it is we people who should really try to spread it as much as possible through such communication. So I appreciate what you said.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tangsale.
Sir, with everyone's permission, I think we can start. It's 10:04, and our colleague Ms. Rishita can start off. We are missing currently Mr. Harish Damodaran, the leading columnist. I think he will be joining in between. He has something in his hand. So Rishita, please start off with the proceedings.
Yes, sir. I would like to still seek a permission from our director to start this event, sir. Where, sir?
Please carry on.
Sometimes challenges and struggle are exactly what we need in our lives. May you welcome every effort, every struggle, and every challenge. May you open your wings and fly. Good morning, everyone. I, Rishita Sengar, Assistant Professor of Prestige Institute of Management, heartily welcomes our Chief Guest, Sir Nixon Joseph, Chief Operating Officer at SBI Foundation. Guest of Honor, Shri Harish Damodaran, National Rural Affairs and Agriculture Editorial of Indian Express. Guest of Honor, Shri Mohan Tanske, former Chairman and Managing Director, Central Bank of India. Keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Muhammad Anwarul Kabir, Vice Chancellor, State University of Bangladesh. Conference Chairman, our Director, Dr. Nishant Joshi. Conference Partner, Dr. Devis Jain. Coordinator of the event, Dr. Pooja Jain. Delegates, presenters, faculty members, and media. It's an honor to welcome you all for the inaugural ceremony of Fourth Finance e-platform on the topic Unlocking Financial Growth After Lockdown, Issues and Challenges Post-Pandemic COVID-19. Welcome all. Salutation to Devi Saraswati. Shubham karoti kalyanam, arogyam dhana sampada, shatru buddhi vinashaya, deepa jyoti namastate. I fold my hands before the light and bring prosperity, auspiciousness, health, abundance, and wealth, and the destruction of enemies' intellect. To make this morning a blessed one, let's invoke Goddess Saraswati. Thank you all. Now I invite Dr. Pooja Jain, coordinator of the Fourth Finance Seminar, for the introduction of the event. Please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Rishita, ma'am. Honorable Chief Guest of the occasion, Mr. Nixon Joseph, Chief Operating Officer at SBI Foundation. Keynote speaker for the inaugural session, Professor Dr. Muhammad Anwarul Kabir, Vice Chancellor, State University of Bangladesh. Esteemed guest of honor, Mr. Mohan Tanske, former Chairman and Managing Director, Central Bank of India. Very distinguished guest of honor, Shri Harish Damodaran, National Rural Affairs and Agriculture Editor of Indian Express. Conference patron, Dr. Devis Jain, Dr. Nishant Joshi, Director PIMG, Dr. Navita Nathani, Deputy Director PIMG Management Department, Dr. Tarika Singh, Deputy Director PIMG Commerce, IT, Law, Dr. Abhay Singh Chauhan, Organizing Secretary, Third Finance Seminar, executives, academicians, and delegates from across the globe. A very good morning to all. On behalf of Prestige Institute of Management Gwalior, I, Dr. Pooja Jain, Organizing Secretary, welcome you all in the inaugural ceremony of Fourth Finance Seminar 2021 in collaboration with the publication partners are the International Journal of Digital Accounting Research, Scopus Index, International Journal of Business and Globalization, Scopus Index with InterScience Publishers, International Journal of Public Sector Performance Management, Scopus Index with InterScience Publishers, and International Journal of Technology and Transfer and Commercialization. Martin Luther quoted, "We must accept finite disappointment, but we must never lose infinite hope." This seminar is a perfect platform for researchers across the globe to present their research and explore areas influenced by digitalization. The seminar offers participant publication opportunities in 5 Scopus listed journals. Today, the inaugural will be followed with 3 parallel tracks and last track for the best paper session. The name of the winner of best paper will be announced in the valedictory ceremony. I hope the interaction that will take place in a whole day would enable us to contribute towards development of understanding about unlocking financial growth after lockdown with issues and challenges post-pandemic COVID-19. I would like to highlight here that we have received 132 research articles, including national participants from Andhra Pradesh, Delhi, Gujarat, Haryana, Karnataka, Kerala, Rajasthan, West Bengal, Maharashtra, Manipur, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, to name a few, and the international participants from Nepal, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Ukraine are participating in Fourth Finance Seminar. The session details are already sent to you by mail along with the session chair, keynote speaker, and session rapporteurs. For any assistant, our IT team will be present to help you. In the end, I would like to wish all the delegates a very happy learning and would like to congratulate them in advance from an international publication to their credit. Thank you once again. Happy learning.
Thank you, ma'am. I take privilege in welcoming our esteemed director, Dr. Nishant Joshi, for welcome address. Please, sir.
Good morning to all of you. I am humbled with the presence of such dignitaries in the inaugural of the 4th biannual finance seminar on the topic Unlocking Financial Growth after lockdown issues and challenges post-pandemic COVID-19. Heartiest thanks to Dr. Mohammad Anwar Kabir, Vice Chancellor, State University, Bangladesh. I cannot express my gratitude to our honorable guest, Shri Mohan Tansale, former Chairman and Managing Director, Central Bank of India. I'm very, very thankful to Shri Harish Damodaran, who I wish will join very soon, the National Rural Affairs and Agriculture Editor of the Indian Express. The blessings of Shri Nixon Joseph, Chief Operating Officer at the SBI Foundation in the morning made our day. I'm extremely thankful to our chairman, Dr. Shri Devish Jain, a leading industrialist, chairman of the Prestige Education Foundation and chairman of the Soya Processors Association of India, to spare his valuable time from his routine works and give us this early morning time and be present here to bless the event. Indian banking and financial sector, though, has been criticized over the years for being extremely reserved and largely dominated by nationalized banks like the sorts of SBI, PNB, Central Bank of India. But the last couple of years for the Indian banking sector has been extremely challenging. The sector has already been battling with the NPAs and with capital adequacy. COVID-19 is only complicating the affairs. COVID-19 has posted a serious hindrance in the efforts of banks to normalize, and now probably venturing into unknown territories. But the sector is extremely promising. And the conference today would try to give us points and highlight areas where the unlocking of the financial growth post-COVID could happen. Thanks to all the guests, to the participants, to the institutions who are sponsored, and special thanks to the Reserve Bank of India for sponsoring the event. Rishita, please carry on.
Yes, sir. I would like to introduce our chairman of the institute, Dr. Devish Jain. In last 4 decades, Dr. Jain has come to be regarded as one of the most knowledgeable agribusiness specialists, having extensive contacts with key global players. He has come to be widely appreciated for his innovative initiatives to put Indian oilseed sector on firm footing by drawing up a roadmap for sustained increase in oilseed production, as well as production in additional of his efforts for export market development. For 2 successive terms, he had held a key assignment as chairman for 2 terms, and in year 2008-9 as president of COIT, Central Organization for Oil Industry and Trade, the apex body presenting the entire oilseed trade and industries of India. Dr. Devish Jain is currently the chairman of the Soybean Processor Association of India, president of Prestige Group of Companies, and chairman of Prestige Education Foundation. Dr. Jain has accorded the covered sponsorship of US government in 1999 for the prestigious orientation program at the renowned University of Urban, Cambridge, USA, along with 58 other agribusiness experts from 19 countries. He has earned his MPhil degree and PhD doctorate in 2009-10 from the Open International University for Complementary Medicines in affiliation with Zoristan College in Speculative Conservative Status of UNESCO. He was later conferred with DSA for 2013 for his extraordinary effort for his crisis situation in export market due to spoilage of Indian soybean quality and averting claims, rather revealing confidence in reabsorption of Indian soybean experts. Now, I request Dr. Jain, the conference partner, to address the audience. Please, sir.
It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is one that is most adaptable to change. Namaskar. Good morning and warm greetings to you all, our respected and distinguished guests for this seminar, Shri Nixon Joseph, CEO of SBI Foundation, keynote speaker, Dr. Mohammad Anwarul Kabir, Vice Chancellor of State University of Bangladesh, Shri Mohan Tansaleji, the former chairman of Central Bank of India, Shri Ajay Vyas, Executive Director of UCO Bank, Shri Harish Damodaran, the editor on Rural and Agriculture Affairs of Indian Express. I'm thankful to Dr. Nishan Joshi, Director in charge of Prestige Institute of Management and Research, Gwalior, and the learned faculties, along with my dear young Prestigians, for organizing this important webinar while we are still battling the COVID second wave, which hardly spared any one of us. Friends, as we all know, this pandemic has brought about devastations of unimaginable proportions, maimed millions of lives, orphans, thousands of children. Even there are numerous cases of the whole family being wiped out by this deadly pandemic. While I'm talking to you, all India figures continue to witness over 2.5 lakh COVID-19 cases and loss of thousands of lives on a daily basis. And I really don't know as how many more months will it take to flatten the COVID surge in this country. In the midst of extraordinary challenges and uncertainty and countless personal tragedies, leaders are under pressure to make decisions on managing the immediate impact of the pandemic and its consequences, decisions that will shape the state of the world, more precisely India, for years to come. While the fallout from the crisis is both amplifying familiar risks and creating new ones, changes at this scale also creates new openings for managing systemic challenges and ways to build back better. There is no gainsaying the fact that preventive measures with various forms of restrictions and lockdowns have affected the economy badly. Even as the cases of COVID-19 across the country are showing a declining trend for the past 1 week, there is no denying the fact that it has caused an irreversible losses both to human life and to the economy. Running through its policies and actions, the curve of infection is slightly slowing now in India, but its impact has been disastrous in many ways. The country, as per the available statistics, suffered a loss of $4.5 billion every day during the initial lockdown of 21 days. About half of the businesses of the nation were affected severely, and supply chains also fell prey to this pandemic. There will be a deep impact on the economic activity by extension of lockdown by the government, which can sharply cut India's GDP forecast for the current financial year. A contraction of more than 2% is expected. The Indian economy is entering a contraction phase after prolonged slowdown. A great stress can be seen in resources, both business and the government. The government's policies in response to the COVID-19 pandemic will be a challenge since it has to distribute very scarce resources to satisfy unlimited demands of the nation. To alleviate the economic fallout, the government had announced a $266 billion support package containing both fiscal and monetary measures worth around 10% of India's GDP. The factors that determine the shape of recovery include the duration of pandemic, its impact on jobs, businesses, and household incomes, the extent of fiscal stimulus provided by the government, etc. The RBI expects the economy to contract in financial year 2021. However, it has not yet given a level to it. Some analysts have predicted if the lack of vaccine forces the government to continue with the semi-lockdown phase, the economy will contract by as much as 5%. The sharp reduction in the GDP contraction also led to revise up the fiscal deficit estimate by 0.5% to 6.3% as against 4.6% achieved in financial year 20. The COVID-19 pandemic has withered the Indian economy by bringing to a halt. The impact of lockdown ranges from rich to poor. A sharp decline was noticed in India's industrial production from April, when the nation went into lockdown, and most of the production units were shut completely. The index of the industrial production contracted by as much as 55% compared with the same period a year earlier, which includes sectors such as mining, manufacturing, and electricity. The sharpest decline for the month of June was seen in manufacturing of consumer durables. A drastic fall was observed in business activity in the services sector in April and May this year, as the pandemic and semi-lockdown in many states hindered operations and there were minimal demand in the market. A sharp decline was observed in the domestic travel and tourism sectors as people chose to stay safe in their homes. According to the statistics of the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, the auto manufacturing sector suffered from the daily turnover loss of approximately 300 million per day for each day of closure during the lockdown. Dear friends, talking about recovery of Indian economy post-COVID pandemic, with the business across the nation dealing with losses, there are fresh challenges to tackle the spread of COVID once the economy reopens. With continued restrictions and semi-lockdown in the country for past over 1.5 months, the country may not be able to afford further restrictions and the economic activity restores back to normality. In the instance, economic disruptions last for a long time, resulting in several activities being foregone instead of being deferred. In such circumstances, and assuming incomes and jobs are not permanently lost, the economic growth recovers sharply and returns to the path it was following before the disruption. This is called a V-shaped recovery. However, in case the recovery is slower and takes more time because of economic disruption resulted in several jobs being lost and people losing incomes, drawing down on their savings, etc., then the economy will follow a U-shaped path. In such a scenario, after the initial fall, the recovery is gradual before regaining its momentum. In light of COVID-induced disruptions, there is a possibility of a W-shaped recovery as well. This shape allows for a possibility of a V-shaped recovery, which is pegged by a second wave of infection until, of course, the economy recovers for the second time. The last scenario is one policymakers most dread. It is called the L-shaped recovery. In this type of recovery, the economy fails to regain the level of GDP even after years go by. As the shape shows, there is a permanent loss of the economy ability to produce. Post-lockdown in 2020, the unemployment rose abruptly and the household budget was thrown off gear. Government tried controlling the situation by coming up with two good shock absorbers. First, the National Rural Employment Guarantee Program was announced by Rs 400 billion or budgeted amount in order to boost employment opportunities in the villages. Additionally, an allocation of Rs 500 billion for the specific purpose of providing employment to returning migrants workers was announced. There were several other helpful actions undertaken for various sectors. Like to quote, a credit line of 300 billion was announced for MSME sector in order for them to meet the operational expenses. Intellectual audience, but the most worrying factor at present is rising poverty globally as well as in India for the first time in the last 20 years due to disruption of the pandemic. But as there is more mutations every day in the number of positive cases, we are required to have a trade-off between lockdown, economic activity, and livelihood. What I suggest is that there is a vital need for targeted and localized lockdowns to be continued. I strongly recommend revenue expenditure to be increased in India to target income support measures so that the livelihood can be maintained and poverty can be contained. Though growth can be expected in certain areas, but poverty is the real thing. However, we anticipate for economic recovery and stabilization, fiscal support through an institutional mechanism like and form of special purpose vehicle and public-private partnerships is essential to support phases of vaccine production and circulation. More supportive mechanisms are needed on policy front. An urgent action plan for the crisis in hand and the crisis to come if needed. A plan whose accomplishment and enactment would requisite to be ascended on a war footing and for which imperative fiscal provisions shall need to be prioritized. I would end up my talk with a positive note by Emmanuel, an American politician. You never let a serious crisis go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things you think you could not do before. Thank you and wish you all good, healthy, and a safe year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to welcome our guest of honor as he has joined, Sri Harish Damodaran, National Rural Affairs and Agriculture Editor of Indian Express. Welcome, sir. Proceeding forward, I would like to introduce Our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Mohammad Anrul Kabir, Vice Chancellor, State University of Bangladesh. Professor Dr. Kabir is currently the Vice Chairman of SUB. Before joining SUB, Dr. Kabir has been teaching in Department of Accounting, University of Chittagong for as many as 22 years. Besides, he worked as an adjunct faculty member in good numbers of private university based in Chittagong. Professor Kabir is a Commonwealth scholar. He obtained PhD under a sandwich program between University of Doon, UK and University of Chittagong, Bangladesh in 2009. Apart from academics job, he served Chittagong University Teachers Association twice in the capacity of Joint Secretary and Treasurer. Also, he served as Director of Bureau of Business Research, University of Chittagong. Before joining academia, he worked in Bexco Group of 1.5 years. I request sir to kindly address this audience, sir, please.
Rishita, I think my voice is clear. Is
Yes,
my
sir.
voice loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Wow. So the audience, at the very outset, Dr. Davis Jain has made citation from The Origin of the Species of Charles Darwin. I also love to cite the same in my strategic management classroom. Whenever we talk about diagnosing business environment, both the internal and external, we actually advise our students, I mean the future strategists of the business and global world, to see what important changes are taking place in the domestic environment as well as in the global environment. And that's why this citation from Charles Darwin has become very relevant. But in the backdrop of COVID situation all around the globe, so this citation has become very relevant for the Homo sapiens. And we should be grateful to the Nobel philosopher Charles Darwin for making these prophetic comments about the survival of the different species. We know that the dinosaur was the most powerful species one time, but it has extinct from the nature because it was not responsive to the change in the nature and environment. The Homo sapiens is the most intelligent species, but in the Second World War, we can observe that not less than 60 million people lost their lives. And in the COVID pandemic, we know the statistics. We, the human being, consider ourselves the mightiest creature of the Almighty God. But sometimes we forget to respond, to adapt with the changes of the environment. And that's why pandemic arrives. We know that there is only one planet where any species can live. It is the Earth. And we have to maintain some natural law. We have to abide by some basic principles of health and hygiene. But when we forget about our duty to the planet, then pandemic occurs. And quite naturally, the nature has started taking its toll. So at the outset of my speech, I would like to thank the conference patron, Dr. Davis Jain. He is a very generous industrialist. He is a very good organization of educational institutions. So I had opportunity to meet him 2 years ago in a conference organized by Prestige Institute of Management, Gwalior. My thanks flows to Mr. Nixon Joseph, Chief Operating Officer, SBI Foundation, and Chief Guest of the today's session. My respect to Sri Mohan Ansari, former Chairman and Managing Director, Central Bank of India, and guest of honor of this session. My special honor to Mr. Sri Harish Damodaran, the National Rural Affairs and Agriculture Editor of highly circulated Indian Express. My heartfelt thanks to Mr. Nishan Joshi, the capable director of PIM, and my thanks flows to him for inviting me to this session. And my thank also flows to Mr. Anil Bajpai. So I would love to quote from Guha Upanishad at this time, which says, Vasudha Kutumbakam. I mean, the world is one family. We know the explanation to this phrase. It is said, everyone who comes to this world is born equal and has an equal right to everything in life. But the success level of each individual depends on how we use our own potentials to make a mark or just be a part of the crowd amongst the 100 others. So in this crucial stage of our life, time has come to demonstrate our character. We must leave our mark in this planet so that the next generation remembers us for our sincerity, our hard work, and our commitment to this planet. Whenever Dr. Pooja Jain informed me about my involvement in this seminar, I thought that I will just say some words orally about the theme of the seminar. But later, I thought it would be wiser if I give some speech in reference to some relevant information which can be clarified through some PowerPoint slides. And that's why last night I sent her some slides. And these slides contain some information which is very much relevant to the discussion of this seminar. And I'm very much happy to see that Pooja Jain has started to share the slides on the screen. You can see that the title of my presentation is The Impact of COVID-19 on Financial Services and Financial Market Practices. So in order to hold discussion on this topic, I am giving a special focus on Bangladesh. What is happening in Bangladesh, especially in the money market and in the capital market. I am also giving you a glimpse of what is happening all around the globe. And you know, this title is quite consistent with the theme of your finance seminar, which is unlocking financial growth after lockdown issues and challenges post-pandemic COVID-19. So I think this is quite relevant and consistent with the theme of your finance seminar. Now, in this slide, you can easily spot that the COVID-19 has scared all the countries, almost all the countries of this beautiful planet, from Sub-Saharan region to Middle East, from Middle East to Far East, from Eastern Europe to Western Europe, from North America to South America. Of course, I'm very much happy to note that there are some countries which have become successful to contain the disease successfully. And these countries essentially include all the Scandinavian countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. As right from the beginning, they adopted some policy and applied those policy very strictly. So they are now getting the dividends. The United Kingdom is one of the developing nations which was struggling hard to contain the pandemic. But because of massive vaccination program and because of lockdown throughout the United Kingdom, they have been able to deal with the pandemic quite successfully and effective. Now, I would like to turn to the next slide. So far as South Asia is concerned, by South Asia, we actually mean the countries which belong to SARC, South Asian Regional Cooperation. So out of these 7 countries, 1 country is found quite successful to deal with the COVID crisis. It is Bhutan. All other countries have been struggling hard to contain the disease. It has already been transmitted in the community. And like other South Asian countries, Bangladesh is also struggling hard as how to contain the disease. And we have taken a lot of measures economically and legally, and they are now started paying dividend. So I'm now turning to the next slide. Here you can see that the pandemic actually started in March 2020. The first COVID patient in Bangladesh was detected on March 13, 2020. But at the very outset, we did not have any standard protocol for the treatment of COVID patients. In both the public and private sectors, we had limited amount of beds as compared to the density of population. And we also had difficulties to manage the unruly people who were very reluctant to wear masks and who were very reluctant to comply with some basic health and hygiene principles. And you can see from the graph that the number of COVID patients increased in March and April 2021. About 7,000 cases were detected every day. And after giving very strong lockdown for more than a month, which started from 14th of April 2021, the government has been able to control the situation. Now, before April 14, at least 100 COVID patients died every day. Now it has been reduced to 35 to 40. So this is the good news. Now, let us turn to the next slide. It shows that in Bangladesh, both the commercial banks and non-banking financial institutions have endured with difficult times during the pandemic. So far as the commercial banks are concerned, we actually find 3 kinds of commercial banks in Bangladesh. The state-owned commercial banks, which actually were established right after the inception of Bangladesh in 1971. A good number of private commercial banks are now operating in Bangladesh, and they are presenting the lion's share of business in the banking sector, and a handful number of foreign commercial banks are operating in Bangladesh. And these foreign commercial banks include HSBC and Standard Chartered Bank. By non-banking financial institutions in Bangladesh, we mean the insurance companies, the leasing companies, and the venture capital companies. To date, there are as many as 34 non-banking financial institutions in Bangladesh, and they also had some bad time, odd time during the pandemic. The next slide shows what actually happened to the money and capital market in Bangladesh. And here we can see that during the pandemic, the commercial banks had been struggling to collect the dues from the customers. And although most of the commercial banks resorted to automated devices for payment of cash, actually during the pandemic time, so this automation paid dividend. Before that, the customers, especially the retail customers, used to approach to the cash counter for drawing their money from the commercial banks. And during the pandemic situation, the government barred because you have to make a social distance during the pandemic. So that became troublesome for the people who had very little knowledge about the automation of the commercial banks and who did not have ATM cards. But in course of time, the commercial banks resolved the problem. And in the post-COVID situation also, I think this remarkable progress will continue. We are not going to resort to the earlier practice. When the pandemic starts in March 2020, the labor firms in Bangladesh, the labor firms means the firms which highly depend on the bank finance for their ongoing projects, they actually started to suffer because most of the businesses were shut down. The revenue generation was actually obstacled by the pandemic situation. So in many cases, they failed to make payment of their installment to the commercial banks. So the rate of non-performing loans increased. But after the situation got momentum, the Central Bank of Bangladesh, the Bangladesh Bank, took some measure. And since December 2020, the situation started to improve. And in order to combat the situation, the Bangladesh Bank has instructed the commercial banks to reduce the interest rate to single digit. Now the maximum amount of interest on loan is 9% and maximum amount of interest on deposit is 6%. So it actually made able all the entrepreneurs who organized small and medium enterprise in Bangladesh. Because of this policy, the small, medium, and micro enterprises has more or less survived. Now let us see what happens to the non-banking finance institutions. In a country like Bangladesh and other third world countries, the impact of money market quite naturally spills over the capital market. It also has an impact on non-banking financing institution because the commercial banks always become generous to finance the non-banking financial institutions. More importantly, the insurance companies, they make investment in money market and capital market. So the overall situation of the money market has some strong ramification on the capacity of the non-banking financial institution. They suffer from liquidity and they also suffer from uncertainty about the future quality of their assets. So to this end, the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank of Bangladesh, they took some corrective measure. They provided some incentive to certain parties. So right from the September 2020, the situation has started to improvise. So now let us see what happens all around the globe so far as the stock market is concerned. In this particular graph, you can see at least 5 indices which are very much popular in South Asia. Nikkei, it is the Japanese index. You know, right at the outset, the index suffered, but it revived. And you know, till 24 January 2021, as per Bloomberg, it is found that the Nikkei registered a growth of 22.9%. The Shanghai also followed the footprint of Nikkei. It is 16.1% so far as the growth of the capitalization is concerned. The Dow Jones Industrial, which is very relevant for the United States, it has shown a positive growth of 7.1%. On the other hand, Italy MIB, it suffered from a loss of capitalization by 5.3%. The most important index of the London Stock Exchange, FTSE 100, I mean the Financial Times Stock Exchange 100, it also suffered grossly. It suffered by 11.6%. So this situation is more or less prevalent in the South Asian Stock Exchange. At the beginning, most of the indices demonstrated a loss, and from January and onward, those indices started to regain. Now, I am very much happy to tell you that despite the COVID situation, Bangladesh has registered a very positive economic growth in the last year. It is not less than 5%. Although in 2029, the growth rate was more than 7%. Bangladesh is one of the high growth countries in Asia. It has been able to maintain the growth because the Bangladesh Bank, I mean the central bank of the country and the principal regulator of money market, has taken some special measure on time. So let us look at those measures. Well, so like any densely populated country like Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, we had to make a trade-off between the lives of the people and the livelihood of the people. So we cannot consider one in isolation. We cannot consider one in vacuum. So keeping this in view, the ministries, the Ministry of Finance, the Bangladesh Bank taken some measure, and those measures actually aimed at to calm down the spread of pandemic, but also looked at how not to squeeze economic activities of the common people. So that's why sometimes lockdown was asserted by the government and sometimes it was relaxed because we had to always make a balance between the life of the human beings and the livelihood. You know, starvation may also cause to death. Well, this slide, the next slide shows that the COVID-19 disrupted the second half of financial year 2020. I mean, it had a severe impact on the second half from July 2020 to December 2020. And you know, the growth rate of GDP was reduced by 2.94%, but still there was a positive growth of 5.24%. I mentioned that. There are some industries which demonstrated W-shaped recovery, and there are some industries which actually made V-shaped recovery. Say the food and restaurant industry. So it actually had shown the W-shaped recovery. The shape of the recovery means wherever lockdown is asserted, the industry has gone down. And when the lockdown is drawn, it has risen to certain level. Again, when the lockdown is asserted, the industry has gone down substantially. So this cycle is continuing for food and hospitality industries. And you know that Bangladesh is the second largest ready-made garments exporting country of the world. And it is the mainstay of our foreign earnings. So we cannot make any compromise in the way of generating exports. And happily, at the moment, we have 45 billion of foreign exchange reserve with the Bangladesh Bank. It is the highest of our history. And you know, it is one of the healthiest in South Asia. So in order to maintain that, we have to allow the ready-made garments and textile industries to carry on their activities. And you know, they actually experienced the V-shaped recovery. But there are some other industries which flourished during the pandemic. And you know, every tragedy opens up some opportunity for some businesses. The pharmaceutical industry flourished because the people started becoming health conscious. There was a greater demand for the pharmaceutical products. And you know, the hospital sector also flourished. At the beginning of the COVID crisis, we did not have adequate infrastructure to provide treatment to the COVID patients. Now, basically, in the capital city of Dhaka and some cities of the countryside have developed adequate infrastructure to provide proper treatment to the COVID patients. So the private and public sector of health and family planning, especially the hospitals, they absolutely gained during the COVID situation. And there are some service sectors who became the casualty of the COVID-19. And this service sector essentially include the transportation, storage and communication, financial intermediaries, and the real estate. And you know it very well that during the lockdown, like India, Bangladesh also banned the public transport for carrying passenger from one city to another city. And you know, in Bangladesh, Bangladesh Railway is a very profitable public organization, state-owned organization. But during the pandemic, it has to close down so many important routes. So that had a very serious consequence on the revenue generation of the transportation companies. So far as real estate is concerned, in the pandemic, the people seldom thought of making investment in the real estate. So there was a drastic slowdown in the progress of the real estate business in Bangladesh. So I have already mentioned some points about the banking sector. You know, at the beginning, the growth rate of the loan of the commercial banks has slowed down remarkably because the people were not very much interested to take new venture during the COVID situation. They stopped for a while and they actually were looking for a better economic situation of the globe. But when the Bangladesh Bank took some measures, the situation has started to show an upward trend since December 2020. And you know, government also has started taking, especially the Bangladesh Bank, has started started buying the bonds and securities from the market that increased the supply of money in the market. The people at individual level did not suffer from deficiency of cash. The household spendings were going on. Here you see that the Bangladesh Bank took some measures. So it actually contributed positively to revive our banking sector. It actually took expansionary monetary policy measures that had a positive fight in the money market. The commercial banks, the indigenous bankers, they became aware of the situation. And the increase of foreign remittance, it also contributed to the rise of the economy. And as far as capital adequacy, the return on asset, and other solvency indicators are concerned, the Bangladeshi commercial banks has demonstrated the gradually better performance since December 2020. And in order to ensure the situation, in order to ensure the growth in the banking sector, some policy measures have been taken. The repo rate means the rate through which the commercial banks buy the securities from the Bangladesh Bank, or the rate at which the commercial banks discount the first-class commercial bills with the Bangladesh Bank. So that repo rate was reduced by 125 basis points, 1.25%. The cash reserve ratio was also reduced by 150 basis points, that is 1.5 points. And advance to deposit ratio was increased by 2%, 200 basis points. So that actually increased the liquidity position of the commercial banks. And the commercial banks became more interested to provide loans to the customers. So as a result, the call money market and interbank repo market were largely stable. So far as the stock market of Bangladesh is concerned, I should mention two markets of Bangladesh. Of course, there are two markets only, the Dhaka Stock Exchange and Chittagong Stock Exchange. And the principal index of Dhaka Stock Exchange, the DSEX, it had fallen drastically on the verge of the COVID-19, but because of many stimulus packages offered by the government and the Ministry of Finance, the impact appeared to be short-lived, and the market has started to gain its confidence. As of today, the principal 10 sectors of Dhaka Stock Exchange, which comprise the 90% of the total capitalization of the market, they are no longer volatile. They are now more or less stable. And both the institutional investors and individual investors who are making investment in the stock market, they have got confidence on the market. They started making investment. So I'd like to focus on some important issues that we have to place emphasis for the future. The COVID has learned us a lot, and we have taken a lot of lessons during this pandemic, and we have to continue to apply our experience in the upcoming years. So the first one that I want to bring to your notice, that is, we have to adapt ourselves to the new normal era. The new normal era means the COVID is not going to be cured very soon. It might stay for 5 more years or for a couple of years. So we have to resort to the automation process that we have already adopted during the pandemic situation. We cannot resort to our traditional practice. So we have already learned a lot in the pandemic. Nowadays, we are living in the age of fourth industrial revolution. This industrial revolution encompasses a number of issues like the Internet of Things, machine learning, etc., CPS, cyber physical system, cloud computing. So we have already resorted to many mechanisms of artificial intelligence. So we have to continue to apply all these equipments and devices in the upcoming days. And we have to redefine our customers, redefine our products so that we can deliver the best customized product to our customers. The second important lesson we have to take, that is, we have to consider the onboard resilience. During the pandemic in Bangladesh, what I observed, many industries actually applied for the incentives from the government. And they thought that their survival solely depends on the grace of the government. And that is popularly known as bailout in the United States. But you cannot rely for long on the bailout by the government. So that's why you have to stand on your own feet. Many small and medium enterprises in Bangladesh did not have any preparation for any awkward economic situation. They did not have any financial reserve. Their financial condition was something like living on hand to mouth. Now, the small and medium enterprises, the constituents of money market like insurance companies, commercial banks, non-banking financial institutions, they have to think twice whether they will continue this kind of practice in the upcoming days. There should be some provision for the future. And finally, building societal relevance. The corporate social responsibility is one of the highly talked issues in the arena of business and farming. Nowadays, we have made some further advancement to the new concept, SRI, socially responsible environment. And in the United States, a new index has been invented, that is environmental, societal, and governance index. So our businesses in the third world countries, in the developing nations, have to think about this. So we have to play a vital role in restoring, in helping our own communities. So we cannot take our eyes away from the O's of our customers, from the owns of our customers. We have to let them build. We have to let them survive in the catastrophic situation. Finally, I would like to make an end of my speech with a remark of Angela Martu. We all know about this noble lady, the Chancellor of Germany. She made a very famous comment back in 2008 when Lehman Brothers, the fourth largest investment company of the United States, went into bankruptcy. She actually mentioned about the Swabian wife. Swabia is a place of Germany. The Stuttgart is the focal point of that state. And the Swabian wives, they are very much famous for the way they manage their families. They are very much strict about the family affairs. And they don't make any cheap spending. They always make spending judiciously, and they also make solid investment. So that's why it is widely believed that in the catastrophic situation, in the very awkward economic situation, none but Swabian wives survive. They can maintain their family comfortably even during the recession or depression. So what Angela Merkel wanted to give message to the world community, that is, if you become a person like a Swabian wife, if you make your household spending very judiciously, when you make solid investment, then you will never suffer in the catastrophic economic situation. And he mentioned, had Lehman Brothers been handed over to any Swabian wife, it would have avoided the bankruptcy in 2018. So with these little words, I want to make an end of my speech. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would like to introduce our guest of honor for the event, Shri Mohar Tangsale, former Chairman and Managing Director, Central Bank of India. Mr. Mohan Tangsale serves as non-executive chairman of Rubix. Mr. Tangsale is one of the most senior and respected bankers in India, having been the chairman and managing director of Central Bank of India and CEO of Indian Banks Association. He is a fellow member of Management and Accounts of India, an Indian Institute of Banking and Finance, and has spent over 4 decades in the Indian banking industry, during which he led 3 major Indian public sector banks. Mr. Tangsale has been conferred with several prestigious awards and recognitions and served on important committees of the Reserve Bank of India and Government of India. Besides serving on company boards, he is also an advisor to SWIFT India, which is also an advisor to the highly supports quality finance messaging services. With this, I request sir to kindly address the audience.
Thank you very much. Very good morning from Mohan Tangsale. And Tangsale comes from Taksal. That's the mint. So, well, Honorable Dr. Mr. M.A. Kabir, Vice Chancellor of the State Institute of Bangladesh, Dr. Davish Jain, Dr. Nishan Joshi, Mr. Nixon Joseph, Mr. Harish Damodaran, Dr. Anil Bajpai, and all dignitaries and participants to the 4th Finance Seminar hosted by Prestige Institute on the most vital subject of unlocking financial system post-pandemic, post-lockdown. And my sincere thanks to Madam Pooja Jain, who has been probably interacting with me right from the first day and getting me into this conference. I'm really honored to be invited in this conference and cherish my memories of having been with one such conference of the Prestige Institute at Indore way back in 2012-13. Let me tell you, all my previous speakers, can you move to the next slide, please? Next. I think you're straight away gone to the first slide. That's right. So since all my prior speakers have already covered most of the, second one now. My prior speakers have already covered all the macro issues on the problems being faced by the various countries, India in particular, the life and livelihood, the various challenges, so on and so forth. I will straight away would like to come to the fact as a banker. And as a banker, I would like to state very assertively that banking is the lifeline of economy. And lifeline of economy, I can assure you that banking sector is addressing all possible issues and challenges to unlock the economic growth. How and why and way forward, let me put it before you. Indian banking industry, the size of the industry is, our deposits are 150 lakh crore, 150 lakh plus crore. Our advances are almost 100 lakh plus crore and investments are 50 lakh plus crores. But is it enough No, let me tell you, the credit to GDP ratio of India is barely 55%. And all the developed countries and various emerging countries, the credit to deposit ratio is as high as 100%, and the maximum is 150%. It means there is enough potential for the Indian banking industry to grow and support. How? Again, you have to really have a look at it. The industry has got 130,000 banks branches, but there are 7 lakh villages in the country, spread across 700 plus districts, plus 28 states, so on and so forth, and different terrains. But these branches are getting supported by the 3 lakh business correspondents plus, and thanks to the digital initiatives of the Indian banking industry, today every household in the country is accessible digitally. What we have been talking about, the JAM Trinity, that is Jandhan, Aadhaar, and mobility. I think it has made a big difference. And thus, when you look at that, you can grow from 55% credit to GDP to 100%. It means there is huge potential in the country. Why? What a wonderful demography you are still enjoying. India is still having the best of the demographic. Last 10 years, we are talking about the demographic dividend. We have probably encashed something, and I think the Management Institute knows this better than anybody else, that how the demographic dividends of the country can be really encashed. Our probably the literacy levels have gone substantially up. Our digital literacy, financial literacy has gone up. And I think this is what needs to be really leveraged by the banking industry. The infrastructure needs are substantial. I don't think that we have got enough infrastructure. We are still having India and Bharat as 2 different geographies. And unless you are able to convert Bharat into India, providing all possible infrastructure, I don't think that we are doing our job. Can we move to the next slide, please? Next slide. Yeah. So I think here, here Dr. Kabir has also made a reference, and I'm a proponent of the fact that it's high time that every individual in the society must respect the climate change and the increased emphasis on the sustainability development goals. It encompasses the environment, social and governance. And to that effect, let me tell you that Indian Bank Association has already brought out the voluntary guidelines on responsible finance. I will request that every person who is interested in the financial sector must look at that document, the voluntary guidelines on responsible finance, that every finance what we did, it must take care of how it impacts environment, how it impacts the stakeholders, and whether it complies to the governance or not. Next, please. Next. Yeah. Let me tell you that while I'm so enthusiastic that so many things could be done, it has got to be done in the phases only. And March 20 onwards, I think we all worked on the survival, various initiatives taken on survival, which I'll cover later, then revival and the growth. I think the initiatives have been taken on all the parameters. Having said that, unfortunately, while we were moving towards growth from revival stage.
अभी आवाज नहीं करना है, मुझे अभी बात करना है, ठीक है? अभी थोड़ा अभी नहीं थोड़ा.
Anything from my side? Hello.
No, sir. Unfortunately, Mr. Damodaran actually got unmuted while he was talking, and that's how you felt that there is an intrusion. Okay. No issue, sir. Please carry on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So as I said that obviously the banking industry had to support the stages of survival, followed by revival, and followed by growth. And let me tell you that we were all very gung-ho that yes, we have overcome the survival stage, revival, and then we are supporting the growth side of it. Unfortunately, the second wave has thrown us back to the first stage of survival. And all of you are aware that how the country is struggling to see that enough infrastructure, enough medicines, oxygens, hospitals, vaccines, whatnot, testing. I think all this is required to be provided. And here also, let me tell you, with the pride that banking industry has contributed, and now you must have recently seen that Reserve Bank of India has permitted banking industry to spend around 50,000 crores into the pharma industry, those who are supporting the COVID-related activities. And you must have seen that State Bank of India had already declared that 5,000 crores are sanctioned to the Serum Institute. On the same lines, I think many more sanctions have happened, which would not have come into the picture on the oxygen, on the various other initiatives which are required initially to really support the survival part of it. In order to see that the revival is really taken care of, let me tell you that the moratorium, which was considered earlier and supported by the various growth scheme like the emergency line of credit, supported by the credit guarantees and all those things are getting revived. You must have seen the Reserve Bank of India has already declared the MSME financial support too, that all the MSMEs up to 25 crores of exposure can be covered under the restructuring and the moratorium. The benefit of this coverage by the Reserve Bank of India, as rightly said in the beginning by Dr. Joshi, that bankers have challenges in public sector banks, in particular, he made a reference, is of the capital. And the non-performing assets have a direct bearing on the capital because you need to provide against that. But if you are allowed to support and allowed not to consider the restructured account as a non-performing asset, obviously to that extent you are saving your capital, and to that extent that capital is available to you for the growth, retaining the capital adequacy, which is a must. All of us are the globally bound bank under the Basel norms. We have to maintain the minimum capital adequacy as per the Reserve Bank of India guidelines, which is of course much superior to the Basel norms. I'm sorry to say that, but yes, Dr. Kabir, India has always been putting 1% high over the Basel norms in order to maintain the capital adequacy. Having said that, the banks had given the additional exposure as a part of survival also. The 10% was given to most of the industries to see that their fixed costs are met with. What is the fixed cost? The employee cost is the fixed cost. You can stop production, but the employee has to be paid for. And the fixed cost has been paid for, 10% was given. Thereafter, of course, the restructuring and resolutions. The Kamath committee has come, which has identified 26 sectors, which are also given the various parameters so that there is no discretion per se, but there is a definite consideration. And at this point of time, let me tell you that unfortunately, because of the excess liquidity in the system, which is getting parked with the Reserve Bank of India, bankers are perceived to be credit averse. I can only say that in the good times when the liquidity used to be good, that was in 2009-10, we have taken sufficient exposures without probably exercising as much caution as possible, leading to huge NPAs, particularly to the infrastructure sector. And I think today the bankers have become prudent. They're taking the cautious credit growth. But credit is a necessity. It is a dharma of the bankers. So if I don't do a credit, where from I pay to the depositors, and how do I really meet the expenses? And thus, when I see the growth part, I think it's being supported, and all the three phases of survival, revival, and growth are being taken care of. Reserve Bank of India, as Dr. Kabir said, all central banks have taken enough care to see that not only the liquidity is made available, the liquidity is available at a cheaper cost by adjusting the CRR levels, by reducing the repo rates, so on and so forth. And I must say that our central bank, Reserve Bank of India, has given enough leeway for the NPA management, where you could really manage the NPA without providing for it. You can retain the stand. Yes, the only precondition was that they should be the standard account as of 1st March 2020. I think it has been a wonderful combination of the central banks, the public sector banks, the foreign banks, the small finance bank, NBFCs, MFIs. I think enough care has been taken that the NBFCs and MFIs, who are actually servicing more of an informal sector. because banking industry is more into the formal sector, but it is the NBFCs and MFIs who are complementing the financial system of this country. They are into the informal sector where you really don't know. So many migrants from Mumbai have gone in lakhs and lakhs of people. And if they had availed the loans from NBFCs and MFIs, how would they pay about? And I think they had the real hit. But I'm very happy to tell you that with all that, the people have responded very honestly and consciously, and the collections of the NBFCs and MFIs have improved during the revival period. It had gone as good as 90% plus. Again, I think the challenges have come to the same position, but I'm very confident that the situation can be very well addressed. Next, please. I think I have covered most of it, but I would like to say that NBFC sector has got a double whammy. One is that the lines of credit are not readily available. So Reserve Bank of India came with the TLTRO and SLTRO, where the banks can support, small finance bank can support this sector. The only thing that one is the demand, because today you cannot be really very gung-ho or very positive about the demand getting created, including what you call the unsecured loans, which was very popular in our country, particularly in the formal sector with the young generation. I think there is so much of reduction into that because people have stopped into discretionary buying. And hopefully those things will gradually go up, and NBFCs, HFCs and MFIs will also get into the normal position after a bit of time. Insurance industry is really affected because huge mortality, and obviously when you pay the mortality claims, typically the premium which you charge, there is a premium to mortality ratios, which are typically the drivers for the solvency management in the insurance industry. And those challenges have been addressed by Government of India by permitting the FDI up to 74% in the insurance industry. No doubt the insurance are getting costlier, have got to be, because if the claim ratios are very high. Nevertheless, I think the insurance consciousness has increased. India is one country where the insurance penetration is still very low. Let me tell you, we are still hardly at around 4% of penetration as against 8 to 10% of the developed countries. And thus, there is huge opportunity for the banking sector to, because when banking sector today is servicing the customer from 360 degree. You are meeting all their requirements, whether on the wealth management side, whether on insurance, whether on pension, and so. The pension is another area which banking industry should really support, because these are the times when people have realized that, yes, wish I had pension, wish I had insurance. Coming to the point of the Black Swan event, I think Dr. Kabir also referred to it. Should we not? A debate is there. But my only simple question is that we have seen through the Black Swan event of 2008, which is a global meltdown. And thereafter, we have learned a new terminology called VUCA, where we have prepared ourselves to stay and operate in the environment of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. But we should question ourselves, were we really prepared? I don't think. Whether you call it a Black Swan event or not, but I think the banking industry, the financial sector has to prepare itself going forward for all such eventualities of the VUCA, which is going to be the order of the day. And I think that is where the banking industry can really address the issues of its customers. I think I will go to the next because I know we are already running out of time. I think I was very happy when Dr. Kabir talked about the adaptability. And I'm very happy to say that the Indian financial system is very agile, flexible, and adaptable. I, being in the industry for more than 4 decades, I've seen the 1991 crisis when India had to pledge its gold outside the country and get into the real reforms of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, and the technology adaptation thereafter. A great move. Dr. Joshi, you referred about the public sector banks. I think 28 banks have been consolidated into 12 banks now. And out of 12 banks, 2 banks are going to be privatized. It means you will have only 10 public sector banks. But let me tell you, all these banks are the listed entities on the stock markets. They are stakeholders into it. No doubt about it that the maximum stake is from Government of India, which I am very sure in good times, Government of India will reduce it to 51%. And thus there will be enough opportunity for the market players, the retail investors, the institutional investors to come into the space and get into the disciplining or ensuring the corporate governance and the maintenance of the sustainability goals under the environment, social and governance. I think the 2 insurance companies are getting privatized. If you ask me, and don't mistake me, today the banking industry, whether it is in the private sector or public sector or any sector, probably on technology, they are at par. On products and services, they are at par. Whether you call it a digital payment, you call it a digital lending, you call it a digital credit monitoring, digital processing. I think most of the people, banks are on the same page. Everybody has understood that they have got to marry with the fintech world and look at the various innovations which are coming from the fintech world into this and really get into it. And I think you must have read that the new licenses are being considered for the corporate sector and the NBFCs who would like to be part of the banking system. The only thing that these new licensing they'll be ensured to be complementing and supplementing and not getting into mere competition. And I think that will make a lot of difference for the country like India, which has to serve a population of almost 130 crore plus spread out to 7 lakh villages. Believe me, out of which 6 lakh villages have population of less than 5,000. You must have seen that the infrastructure is the need of the country. Somehow it is failed, and yes, it is true that because of the asset liability management issues, because of not having enough experience of the infra lending, we have created huge non-performing assets in the banking industry. And to address that, the government has decided to go for the development finance institutions. You must have heard of a National Infrastructure Institution Fund. And in order to address the large NPAs, the National Asset Recovery Bank, which is unfortunately called a bad bank, but it is a bank for handling the bad assets. The biggest benefit of the National Asset Recovery Bank will be the complete loan amount will get aggregated at one place. Where all these assets, which are more than 500 crores, that is the minimum cutoff point, would have not less than 8 to 10 lenders into each account. And if they are 8 to 10 lenders, getting them all together on the same page, on the same lines of resolution mechanism has always been a challenge in the consortium or multiple banking scenario. But the National Asset Recovery Bank will address that. And please note that all these accounts are provided 100% by each bank. It means there is no minus side on the P&L, but whatever will be recovered out of it will be a gain. Whatever 1585 kind of a ratio, which is there for cash and securities, I think it will be a win-win situation for the National Asset Recovery Bank, for the country at large, for the bankers. And the best is that many of the assets will become productive and performing. Last but not the least, I think the way country has adapted the technological changes, the kind of evolution which is happening in the technology, the fintech world. It is not only the fintech, we call it fintech, insurtech, agritech, regtech. And if you look at the India stack in terms of technology, which is operating into the financial system, is great. I think there is an adaptation of whatever you may call it artificial intelligence, machine learning, the blockchain, and whatnot. I think everything is being experimented and is in getting practiced. I think with these words, my sincere thanks to the management of Prestige Institute, Pooja Jain in particular, who has been really pulling me into this. Sir, you have got to be there. And it's my pleasure, Mr. Davish Jain, to reassociate after almost a decade. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would like to introduce our guest of honor of the event, Shri Harish Damodaran, National Rural Affairs and Agriculture Editor of Indian Express. Mr. Damodaran is a journalist who has worked for more than 16 years as a reporter and director analyst with the Press, Trust of India and the Hindu Business Line, currently Senior Assistant Editor at the Hindu Business Line. Mr. Damodaran has specialized in agribusiness and commodities coverage, a job which, besides involving tracking of price movements and harvest size of grains, oilseed, pulses, sugar, and dairy products, has given him ample opportunities to travel, observe, study, and learn from people and things on the ground. Insights from field level reportage over a sustained period have in turn helped in completing his wider interest in microeconomic policy, business and development issues, and also provide a more minute understanding of Indian society, history, and politics. Mr. Damodaran is a recipient of World Food Day Award 2000 from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization and the Indian Association for Advancement of Science, given in recognition of his work as a farm reporter. I request you, sir, to kindly address the audience. Please, sir.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I think I was too much audible while the earlier speaker was there. Yeah. So okay, I'm really thankful to Prestige Institute of Management, especially Dr. Davish Jain, Dr. Nishant Doshi, and Dr. Pooja Jain to invite me for this session. And I want to take off from Dr. Jain's address. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes, sir. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to take off from Dr. Jain's address, which ended on an optimistic note, and like him, I am an eternal optimist, and my optimism actually comes from the sector with which he's very deeply involved and familiar with, which is basically agriculture and agri-processing. I know this is a finance seminar, but maybe there are many lessons that agriculture can offer even to finance professionals, especially in these times. Just think about it. Just think about it like this. See, 2020-21, that is last fiscal, was the 5th year since independence when our economy suffered a recession. Okay, and there were 4 years previously when we had negative GDP growth rates. Okay, you take say 1957-58, it was minus 1.2%. 1965-66, it was minus 3.7%. 1972-73, it was minus 0.3%. And the last one, which was 1979-80, which was minus 5.2%. Now, just note the point that all these 4 years were drought years. So when agriculture failed, our economy also failed. Okay, but this time around, gross value added, which is basically the new name for GDP at factor cost, the gross value added GVA growth has been even more negative, a record minus 6.5%. Okay, but agriculture growth has been plus 3%. Okay, this is the first time in history when our farm sector has grown, even as the rest of the economy has collapsed. I don't want to go to the reasons for it, but in any case, COVID will go down as the first ever natural disaster in India that did not record widespread starvation in terms of a total collapse in food consumption levels. Just again, for some background, in the 1943 Bengal famine, about 3 million people died. In 1966-67, we had the Bihar famine, that led to our daily per capita calorie intake in the state dropping from about 2,200 kcal to nearly about something like 1,200 kcal. Same thing in Maharashtra's 1972-73 famine. It led to an estimated 1.33 lakh plus excess deaths. Okay? But the present pandemic, which is still ongoing, it has not produced that kind of severe food deprivation, food riots, soaring prices, hoarding, which used to take place. This time there has been hoarding of oxygen cylinder and remdesivir, but not rice, wheat, dal, sugar, or edible oils. People have no doubt they have experienced loss of income and even hunger. But we don't know, there's not been much incidence of any widespread starvation. Okay. And according to me, it was the farmers who were our real, though unsung corona warriors. They filled our stomach even in this hour of crisis. Okay. So that is the basis for my optimism. Today, agriculture contributes just about a fifth of India's economy, as against over half, at the time of independence. And if you look at, agriculture sector's share of India's GDP at current prices, it was about, I was just going through the CSO data, it was about 52% in 1950-51, 42% in 1970-71, and 29% in 1990-91, when at the start of our reforms, Then it fell to about 18% in 2010-11, and I think the lowest it hit was in 2018-19. It went to about 17.6%. Last year it was 20.2%, which is probably an aberration. So on the face of it, therefore, agriculture isn't important for the economy like it was, say, during the first 3 or 4 decades after independence. But according to me, this is a very mechanical and completely misleading analysis. The reason for it is, see, when we say that agriculture accounts for only, say, 18 to 20% of India's GDP, we are talking of its primary, that is direct contribution. So we are talking of wheat, but not bread, atta, maida, or say Maggi noodles. Okay, we are talking of milk, but not butter, cheese, pizza, or ice cream. We are talking of cotton, but not yarn, fabric, and ready-made garments. We are talking of sugarcane, but not sugar, ethanol, cogen electricity from bagasse, or even liquor. If you look at our desi tharra, country liquor, it is made from, it is made from about 96% extra neutral alcohol, which comes from sugarcane molasses. Even our IMFL, Indian made foreign liquor, is nothing but molasses-based extra neutral alcohol in which some grain or malt spirit is being added. So if you account for agriculture sector's indirect contribution, direct plus, backward and forward linkages, including, if you look at the sectors that supply inputs, tractors, seeds, fertilizers, crop protection chemicals, and the forward linkages. After all, see, the food in our hotels and dhabas comes from the fields. And a lot of transport business, Dr. Jain will know, it comes from movement of agri commodities. So if you look at all these, I think our agriculture's contribution to the Indian economy will be at least 33%. Maybe someone in your institute, Dr. Jain, can work out agriculture's actual share of GDP, based on a proper input-output matrix model, and I think your people are far better equipped than I to do these calculations, I am personally very bullish on Indian agriculture, and 2020-21 has shown that agriculture can be a beacon of hope even in the most adverse situation. According to me, our economy is going to take minimum 2 years to recover, probably even more. So government should therefore focus on this sector, which is our real strength. It is India's best bet today. You look at this last year, 2021, our overall merchandise exports fell 7.2%, but our agriculture exports grew by 17.5%, from about 35.6 billion to $41.8 billion. And this is a sector that can really help in poverty reduction and boosting incomes. There's no sector which can do it like agriculture. I'll give you a few examples. Take, say, a sugar mill, which crushes about, say, 10,000 tons per day. It will cost about, say, 200 crore. This 10,000 TCD mill requires, cane from about 22,500 farmers, assuming about 6 months of crushing, and average holding of say 1 hectare and average yield of say about 80 tons per hectare. Similarly, so with just 200 crore, you are generating about 22,500 jobs, through farmers. Same thing. You look at say a dairy, say a 5 lakh liters dairy. It needs the milk of at least 50,000 farmers. Each of them, assuming each of them supplies about 10 liters daily. And same thing when you look at it, the sugarcane farmer, he creates employment for harvesting labor, who are paid about 40 to 45 rupees per quintal. So if you look at say about that same 80 tons per hectare average yield, a 1 hectare farmer pays out about 32,000, 36,000 rupees just as harvesting charges. And same thing, whether it is a sugar mill, whether it's a solvent extraction mill, extraction plant, they generate jobs not only in the plant or the mill, but also in the transport of cane or soybean, to the mill, plus, weighment, transport of, all these, this thing, whether it is soya meal, whether it is oil, byproducts, sugar, molasses, etc. We need today an integrated policy in agriculture. States like, for example, UP and Bihar can become mini Brazils. See, like in the case of sugar, why should the cane juice be crystallized into sugar? It can be directly fermented into ethanol for blending with petrol. Today, we are using hardly 300 crore liters of alcohol for blending, whereas Brazil is doing 3,500 crore liters. And only 35% of in Brazil, only 35% of the cane juice from crushing, is boiled and crystallized into sugar. The balance 65% is fermented and distilled into ethanol. Brazil has about 40,000 fuel stations, and they sell petrol which either has 27% ethanol or 100% ethanol. They call it E27 and E100. Even in diesel, they have 12% blending. And they have flexi fuel vehicles which run either on E27 or E100. And here we are struggling to achieve even 10% blending. And at the same time, government wants to promote electric vehicles. Why? Where is the charging infrastructure for electric vehicles? And what about the technology? The technology for electric vehicles is all going to come from abroad, from Tesla and all the people. Whereas here, in the case of sugar, the ethanol, the entire technology is indigenous. Many Indian companies, whether it is ISJEC, Heavy Engineering, or Praj Industries, they have the capability to set up complete ethanol plants. So this is a truly Atmanirbhar industry. So I believe the government should today focus on agriculture. We should leverage opportunities from agriculture and build industries that use the massive quantities of raw material that is generated from our farms, whether it is oil seeds, whether it is pulses, fruits, vegetables, milk. I believe we should target agricultural exports of at least $100 billion in the next 5 years. We should exploit our strategic location, and geographical proximity to many, not to the US, etc., but many populous, low middle income developing markets, like Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a big buyer, Southeast and East Asia, China, West Asia, and Africa. I think this is what Dr. Davish Jain's soybean processing industry has done. I'm sure many others can do it. You look at the voyage time, say from our ports, so take say Kakinada to Hanoi, Shanghai, Busan, or Nagoya in Japan is hardly 15 to 25 days, whereas it is 4 to and same thing, from Kandla to say Bandar Abbas, Dubai, or the Jubail Ali port is hardly 4 to 6 days. Whereas if you want to bring wheat or soybean from Santos to or Brazil's Santos or Argentina's Buenos Aires port to all these markets which I'm talking, it takes 40, 60 days. So I think that we should learn from whatever this crisis has happened. We should look at agriculture, and there should be more, I think research on this thing, including I feel that financial professionals should try and understand this sector better, and according to me, this is the future. Agriculture is not history. Agriculture is the future. Whether it is biofuels, whether it is this thing, and the maximum potential for jobs, and including I think IT and all these things. Now there are a lot of new companies which are coming out with very interesting products. Whether it is in artificial intelligence, whether it is in machine learning, and I think this is the opportunity. And like Dr. Jain, I am an optimistic, and I believe we can overcome. And I think our farmers and agro processors will show the way. I don't want to take more time. I think we are already running out of time. Thank you. Thank you for the organizers. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to unveil the brochure of the finance seminar, which is to be on 22nd April 2023, on the title Banking and Finance Strategy for Future Business Growth in the Presence of All. Can we have the brochure, please? Okay. Moving forward, I would like to introduce our chief guest of the event, Sri Nixon Joseph, Chief Operating Officer at SBI Foundation. Sri Joseph is the President and Chief Operating Officer at SBI Foundation. He has been actively involved in a lot of developmental and community service, banking activities. He works closely with SBI's flagship program and is face behind the success of these CRS initiatives. As a banker, he has extensive experience in various facets of banking like corporate credit, retail operations, and international banking. His international assignments include Manager, SBI Brahman, and Chief Executive Officer, SBI Tokyo Branch. He is a certified credit compliance and information system banker. Sir has received Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Award for Professional Excellence and also is the former president of Toastmaster Club, Tokyo, and founding member of Tokyo International Debating Society. He is known for his love for distance running and has successfully completed 45 full marathons. Through his active involvement in spearheading operations, SBI Foundation has positively impacted millions of lives. With this, I would like to request you, sir, to please address the audience. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. And Dr. David Jain, Chairman, Prestige Group, Dr. Nishant Joshi, Dr. Anil Bajpai, Dr. Muhammad Anwar Kabir, State University of Bangladesh, Mr. Mohan Tangsale, Dr. Tariga Singh, Dr. Pooja Jain, and Mr. Harish Damodaran. Other distinguished guests, faculties, and students of Prestige Institute of Management. I am indeed proud and honored to be part of this fourth financial seminar organized by the Prestige Group. I congratulate the management for holding a discussion on such a relevant topic, especially when there is a lot of disappointment around the economic trends. My former speakers, especially experts, Mr. Mohan Tangsale and Dr. Muhammad Kabir and Harish Damodaran have covered the subject in detail. And being the last speaker, I am left with a little or very few points. I begin by telling that this COVID pandemic, this mess has been created by us, by human beings. This has risen from our failure to respect ecosystems that not only need our protection, but also requires our care. Human activity and ecological interruption are the causes of this pandemic. And when we think about post-COVID direction, it should be greater care for the integrity of the ecosystems. COVID has brought unprecedented sufferings to millions all across the world, and especially to people in India. The face of India's COVID crisis has been the migrant laborer on his foot all across India. And that picture runs contrary to the aspirations of our constitution, which had promised an equitable, inclusive growth. In fact, the struggling of the migrant laborer also proved the unawareness of the state that unorganized labor is a significant factor. It also brought to light that we don't have enough data about various aspects of the economy. The pandemic has struck the Indian economy, hit it badly. That has to be accepted. It has caused disruption to all facets of life, social, political, and economic. India faces a long struggle, and make no mistake about it. But I see some important challenges the post-COVID era. And one is climate change. Climate change poses a grave threat to India on multiple dimensions. Pollution, extreme heat, floods, droughts, and a decline in living standards. Coastal cities could be submerged in the years to come. Dealing aggressively with climate change is critical for the survival and well-being of India's future generations. We cry about the loss of opportunity in labor-intensive manufacturing. But it seems that the fourth industrial revolution is also gradually slipping away from us. Other countries have taken a big lead in new technologies such as artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, electric vehicle market, etc. So unless we have a coherent policy in place, we may be losing the fourth industrial revolution opportunity also. The third challenge which I see is the human capital challenge. We are having a young population, but are we skilling them properly? It is often stated in various forums that our graduates, postgraduates are not suitable for employment. India can reap the demographic dividend only if we are able to skill our youth properly. When we think about post-COVID situation, these are the big challenges which come into my mind. And addressing these require transformational thinking and action. COVID has brought a lot of loss on wealth. The impact of it has never been fully measured. The lockdown induced job and salary cuts will severely impact the private consumption expenditure in India. Hospitality and restaurant business in major cities have taken a significant hit. And travel and tourism sector is one of the largest employers in India. All these lead to increased uncertainty. It will tank consumer confidence and increase the uncertainty in decision making. So the fear of a third wave will hinder any government effort to reinstill confidence in the economy. But there are several silver linings. In this somewhat depressing scenario, there are very important silver linings, and they will be crucial for India to leverage while crafting a breakout strategy. While lockdown-like curbs will weigh on India's ongoing economic recovery, the localized nature of restrictions means that actual impact is likely to be much less severe relative to April-June 2020. Economic sentiment might strengthen further after the initiation of the vaccination program against COVID-19. Informal sector and agriculture. The government efforts to stimulate informal sector, unorganized sector and agriculture will hold the key to recovery. In the post-COVID-19 era, our economic recovery will primarily depend on and come from micro, small, and medium enterprises that are situated across the country because they employ more than 90% of the labor force. So post-COVID recovery depends to a great extent on the support given to MSME and agriculture. Unless there is a revival in investment activity, there cannot be a sustained growth. And Indian economy was facing an investment problem even before the pandemic disrupted economic activity. Another silver lining is the foreign reserves which we are having. Thanks to robust foreign equity inflows, lower current account deficit, and aggressive dollar buying by RBI, India's forex reserves today top more than $500 billion. And that is a big policy cushion. It's a big silver lining. While private discretionary consumption likely to remain muted for some more time, the government investment would be the key. Government spending, government expenditure would be the key in reviving the economy. And in reviving its economy post-COVID-19, India could turn a crisis into an opportunity by focusing on sustainable development activities. It should go for renewable energy that will also enable its citizens to continue enjoying clean air and blue skies. We should shift from fossil fuels to clean energy. Job losses caused by the lockdown could be offset by aggressively supporting the renewable energy sector, as it is faster to build and start a renewable energy plant than fossil fuel-based plants. So decarbonization of the energy system can grow the economy and create millions of jobs. The challenges ahead are daunting. The worst crisis contains within it an opportunity for profound change. And today, if we are brave, we too can imagine a new way of living. We need to be watching this crisis closely and learning lessons from it so that we can address larger challenges which are going to affect the Indian economy post-COVID. The past months have been some of the worst challenging times of our country, for our country, but history shows that with the right spirit, progress can follow a setback. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. As due to technical glitch, we were unable to show our brochure. I would request again to unveil the brochure of the finance seminar, which is to be on 22nd April 2023. The title, Rethinking Banking and Finance, strategy for future business growth in the presence of all.
Time we will join the seminar physically in 2023.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Now, I request the coordinator of 2019 Finance Seminar, Dr. Abhay Singh Chauhan, to propose the vote of thanks. Please, sir.
Thank you, Rishita ma'am. The smallest act of kindness is worth more than the grandest intention. Honorable Chief Guest, Sri Nixon Joseph, Guest of Honor, Sri Harish Damodran and Sri Mohan Tansle, Keynote Speaker, Professor Dr. Muhammad Anwarul Kabir, Chief Patron of Prestige Education Society, Dr. Davesh Jain, Respected Director of Prestige Institute of Management, Gwalior, Dr. Nishant Joshi, our most valued invited guest from the fraternity. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of Prestige Institute of Management, Gwalior, and the entire fraternity of management here together, extend a very heartful gratitude to all the speakers of gracing your importance work and sharing with us your opinions. I take this opportunity to extend our most sincere thanks to all the guests, invitees who have made themselves available from different destinations for their support and coordination. I also wish to express my gratitude to our chief guest for his minute-to-minute guidance and support. I would like to thank our guest of honor, Dr. Harish Damodranji and Mohan Tansale, who have showed their optimistic approach towards agriculture sector, and specifically Dr. Harish Damodranji, who have talked about GDP at factor cost and compared it with different countries also. Then coming forward, I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to our keynote speaker for sharing us some best of the management practices. My special thanks to the students, volunteers for their immense support, dedication, teamwork, and untiring efforts and cooperations. Last but not the least, I would also like to take the opportunity to convey my thanks to print and electronic media for wide coverage of this inaugural ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to state that we all are most grateful to all the speakers to join us on the virtual platform. We thank you for being with us. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you for very much and wish a great learning in the technical sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Joshi.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you
for organizing such a wonderful seminar.
Thank you so much, sir.
Real good.
We wish to see you in the institution once the pandemic has subsided, sir.
Sure.
All right, Pooja and Rishita, we can now close the session officially.
Sure,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Sure, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.